Fine, no.
Okay. Welcome back to the From the Fabricator podcast. I'm your host, Max Perlstein. Thank you so much for once again joining me on this ride through the glass and glazing industry. Once again, the growth of this podcast continues to blow my mind. So I appreciate everybody listening and watching. Let's keep that ball rolling. So thank you so much. Before I get to my guests, a couple of things. One is if you're going to BEC, which I'm sure a lot of you listening and watching are, because it is the show of the spring, February 5th. So hopefully you're watching this before February 5th. February 5th is the cutoff for the hotel. The great rates for the hotel. So you can see that at glass.org, hit the events tab, and then BEC, and that's where you can get that hotel again at the rate that NGA has it set. So please do that before October 5th. And if you haven't registered, that's where you register too. It's going to be an unbelievable show. Jeff Haber is one of the keynote speakers. He's unbelievable, well worth seeing. We also have just a loaded day and a half of education and networking. So please, I look forward to seeing you there. We'll talk more about that next month. Before I get to the guests, I have to thank my good friends at FHC, the sponsor of this episode. Thank you to them, and get ready, because FHC is about to open its doors to its new 22-acre FHC campus, the glass and glazing industry epicenter for innovation, education, and growth. I've seen some pictures online. It's amazing. It's located in Southgate, California. The FHC campus houses state-of-the-art manufacturing, fabrication, and finishing processes, in-house testing, product certifications, tons of stock inventory. It is the industry hub, training space for local and national architectural and glass associations and organizations. It'll have the largest product showroom in the industry, and the FHC Glazer Museum, curated and donated by industry sweetheart, my pal, Andrew Herring. You may even see some stuff from the old Pearlstein days. I'm trying to use my connection with Andrew to show some of my family stuff there. Very excited for the Glazer Museum. Customer will call and pickup is now open at the new location. The entire FHC campus will be open soon. Stay tuned. We'll update you here. Again, thank you to FHC for their support. All right, on the podcast, really excited. I get Steven Acker from Wicona. It's spelled with a W, but it's pronounced with a V. I probably screwed that up. Steven's unbelievable. We had a lot of fun. We covered a lot of things, including jokingly at the end, the Acker Building Index, as he gave his thoughts on where the market's going. But really impressive guy with a great run in this industry. He's an icon, and I'm thrilled that he spent the time. Also spending the time for the third year in a row, Nick St. Denis. He follows Steven. Nick is a financial, the forecaster, not financial, the forecaster for our industry over at Key Media and Research. And he joined me again to talk about where he's seeing the forecast going. He used the term steady and boring, which is a good thing. So that was good. Check that out. And I'll be back on the other side with my TV picks as always. Thank you so much for listening. And here we go with Steven Acker. Okay. Next up on the podcast, Steven Acker, commercial director at Wicona/Hydro Building Systems. Some people may call that Hydro in the U.S., North America. Find them online at hydro.com. That's spelled HYDRO.com. Go to the aluminum and then building systems. See all the amazing work that Steven and team do. But Steven, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Great. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thrilled to have you on, because I know you've got a really impressive past. Can't wait to talk a little bit about the past and the future and so on. But let's start with you personally. Where you were born, where you grew up, and your path to 2025.
I gladly will share that with you. I've been doing this a long time. I was born in the Bronx.
Gotcha.
So I'm a local New Yorker, born and bred here. I was actually raised in New Jersey, went to college on Long Island at Hofstra University. Some might know that from the presidential debates.
Yep.
A number of years ago. I stayed there after college, and I've been here ever since. I got into the business back in, I think, around 86, 87.
Okay.
So it's a long time. That's a lot of fingers I got to count there. I started with a company called A Porcel.
Oh, okay.
Porcel was a storefront distributor. A for Alliance Wall, Porcel for porcelain panels. Back then, porcelain panels was the rage.
Yeah.
The trucks would come to us. We wouldn't even unload it into the building. It would go right to the customers.
Nice.
We were in the panel business and plastics business. From there, we're a small, privately held, privately owned company. There was 2 partners. We got involved with me being there. We grew it to the storefront business. We got involved with Arch Aluminum and Glass, a name from the past, of
Yep.
course.
That's a name from the
We were
past.
there.
Yep.
We were their distributor in the New York area, or one of their distributors. They had some troubles. We evolved from that over to YKK.
Gotcha.
And this is when Oliver was still working at a branch down in, I think it was in Baltimore at the time.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. The beginnings for him. Absolutely.
Yeah. And those were the good old days. Those were the
Yes.
days when a handshake meant something.
Yeah.
You didn't need all these contracts. Someone gave you the word, it meant something. Of course, today it's very different. From there, I started my own business for a number of reasons. The partnership at 8 Porcel was splitting. I was going to buy into it. I ended up walking away from it, and I started my own business. Did really, really well, except shortly thereafter, 9/11 hit.
Oh, being in New York, that's brutal.
It's like someone turned off the water spigot.
Yeah.
And so that experience taught me a lot. Definitely resiliency. Gave me an opportunity that I probably would never have led me to where I am today.
Yep.
And that's, as I look at it a little retrospectively, it's okay. Going through it's very difficult times, but it's one of those things that it happens. And if it wasn't for that, it would not have propelled me into the aluminum side of the business as heavily as I went into the aluminum side of it.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate. My entire career, never missed a day of work.
Love it.
From that experience, I made the hard decision of shutting it down. And I ended up going with Alcoa on the Alcoa Custom Extruded Solutions.
Okay.
Which was the North American extrusion base that sold to the building and construction trade. So we had our own profiles. We sold to window and door manufacturers, as well as some custom shapes.
Yeah.
And I was with them for a little bit, and we ended up being acquired by Sapa /Hydro/Hydro. Very interesting as everything ties together.
Yeah.
So yeah, the business is funny. As the river goes, you never know which way it's going to turn and go.
Yeah.
I have a saying that you can plan all you want, and then God laughs. Well, I'm the epitome of that, because I had all this planning, and listen, it happened. But when Alcoa was acquired, another door opened for me. And that's how I got into truly the glass side of the business with Oldcastle.
Right.
And I was brought in by Ted, the CEO of the company, which was very interesting. And it was around that time that they were looking to acquire VistaWall.
Right.
And so I was brought in because I had the extrusion experience to acquire VistaWall as part of that acquisition team. And from there, I was in charge of the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut facilities for sales.
And that was the VistaWall deal was huge. That was huge. Unbelievable.
It was a major thing. It was really, back then, you were either a glass guy or you were an aluminum, let me rephrase, a glass person or an aluminum person.
Yep.
And I like to think I was probably one of, if not the first, that really bridged both.
Right.
I had the aluminum experience, and I quickly came up to speed on the glass experience.
Sure.
And Ted was the visionary. Look at it today.
Yeah, Ted Hathaway did a lot of things, and I mean that, and then the CRL deal later in his career. I mean, he was a part of some real big happenings for sure.
Well, he came out of the merger and acquisition world from Wall Street. That was his background, and he always had an affinity for the New York market because he was from Connecticut initially. Right. So very interesting. Yeah. But it was a great opportunity, and I was there for a fairly long time. Things changed a little bit as the company changed, and they were looking to divest and go into, private equity and go down that path. And I had an opportunity to go into the international space, to the point where it's one of those things you can't say no. If you don't swing bat, you don't hit the ball.
Right.
And so I took the opportunity and I made that jump. And back then it was really hard because international supply was not as widely accepted as it is today.
Correct.
And so from there, I worked with Permastelisa, I worked with Alumil, and I worked with Hydro.
Yep.
And very, very interesting. But with the Hydro component, It's the Alcoa team that I was with. I'm still working with some of those people.
That's
So
great.
I use the analogy that when I left Alcoa, I got off the bus of Alcoa and I went on a tour of the country. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Coming back on the bus so many years later, I was such a better person, much more knowledgeable, much more experiences than you would see if you were just in one particular company. I learned how a lot of different companies did things, took the best, took the worst, and went forward. And I've been at Hydro, and I plan to end my career at Hydro as well.
Very cool. Very cool. And what I loved about you and love about you is that your experience is so wide ranging. I mean, you've been involved in the little tiny branch aspect, all the way up to skyscraper extraordinaire and then everything in between. And, that's pretty rare. I mean, there are a few people in our world that have that sort of breadth, but usually you're in one camp or the other, or you're in the middle, but not the full thing like you've had in your career. It's really impressive.
Thank you. And I think that lends a lot of opportunity for people, though. For
Yeah.
younger people coming in, it allows them that opportunity to see where they want to go.
Yeah.
They get into the business. My recommendation would be start in the estimating side, learn it from the ground up, learn it from the field. I never started with that, but I remember early on going to a customer and saying, I want to go in the field with you, watch it be installed, help, learn, be hands on. But that gives you that skill set so you know what path you want to go down.
Yeah.
And so there's even though the industry right now is struggling with labor, whether field or in the office, there's such a good opportunity. When I talk to my friends' kids
Yep.
and I meet people that have young kids that don't know what they want to do, but have some mechanical inclination, I tell them to consider this business.
Absolutely. And the one thing that excited me is at Glass Build this past year, we had 50 students from Dallas High School. And the one thing that they really got into, Stephen, was that they got into their hands-on. They were at the FHC booth making a railing, putting together a railing. And then they went to the AGMT testing center and they watched the curtain wall and the storefront being put together, and they were loving it. you
That's
know,
all.
and that, that gives me hope. That gives me
That's
hope.
all.
And I love what you're saying about the estimating and then leading into project managing. We need it. We need it badly.
My son, who is 26, got into the business. I didn't push him. I would never
Awesome.
push him into what he wanted to do. He got into it. And when he started, the person that hired him said, I'm going to put you into estimating to learn. And
Nice.
fast forward a number of years now, he's in the business in project management, doing very well, and he sees that opportunity. Now the ball's in his court. You
Yeah.
work hard, you have a good work ethic, you're smart, things align for you, you can do very, very well.
It's in the blood. He got it. He got the good genes from you, my
Well,
friend. I love
what
it.
do they thank you? What do they say about that? Once you get in this business, you never
You
get out.
never get out. Never get out. Very cool. With Steven Acker, commercial director of Wicona Hydro Systems. And that brings me to the big question. There are probably people listening to this podcast that are wondering, okay, what does Hydro do? We kind of maybe know that they extrude metal. What does Wicona do? Give me a rundown on what you guys do and what you're doing there.
Okay, so I think we should start with Hydro is the parent company.
Okay.
Hydro is the largest and most responsible aluminum producer in the world. So we are driven to produce aluminum at the minimal impact on the environment. And we're leading the way, we're walking the talk, and we are by far the market leader in the production of aluminum. And I'll touch upon that later, what a difference that really is.
Sure.
So under Hydro, there's different business units. Hydro Building Systems, uh, of which I'm part of, we have the Wicona brand, we have Technol in France, Sapa, Domal, multiple brands. In North America, we promote Wicona, which is our German brand, our premium brand, highest performing, highest quality. Wicona is a systems house. You'll hear that terminology. What it is, we design, we engineer, we give all the tools, support, tools, I mean electronic tools, computer, programming, shop drawings, dot, 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 all the way through the entire project. And as part of Hydro, we actually extrude our own profiles. We design, we manufacture some of our own hardware. We outsource a bunch of the hardware as well. but our systems are unique to us. We own the dies, we own the systems, and we work on bespoke projects predominantly.
Nice.
Focus on unitized curtain wall, windows for punched opening, sliding doors, and then swing doors, whether it be balcony or terrace doors. That's the focus of what we go after. But as Wicona coming over to North America, our success has always been on the project side. We're not that heavy into the residential.
Right.
We do some from time to time. You know, if it's a villa in the Hamptons, okay.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. But that's not our forte. It takes us just as much time to do that, if not more so.
It's not like the house in the Bronx you grew up in, that's for sure. Yeah.
100%. You are correct.
I love it. Oh, go ahead.
So that's what we do as a systems provider. And then we work with fabricators, both domestically and internationally. Okay. So we work, and they have to be approved fabricators, because at the end of the day, it's our name on the building.
Yes.
You're never going to remember who installed it, who fabricated. Oh, that's a Wicona system. So we don't take that lightly. We are very selective who we work with, what projects we work on, and we won't damage the brand name at all. We're going to do whatever's possible to make sure that we do the right thing.
No doubt. I love it. All right. Good stuff. So I'm curious, and I know this is a tough one for you because you've had such a run in this industry. Favorite all-time project? Anything stand out to you? Anything, maybe it was how tough it was, maybe it was the architect, the location. What's your all-time favorite project?
I'm going to give you probably 3 favorite projects. We'll start with 2, and then the first one will make you chuckle a little bit.
Love it.
If you got your computer, you can Google this one. It's Google's headquarters in New York City.
I love
that
it.
was a double skin facade right on the West Side Highway, the old St. John's terminal. Really beautiful project, high performing, because it's Google, they can afford that. High performing, more cutting edge technology for North America than we normally see here, because our energy cost is not as high as Europe and elsewhere in the world.
Right.
But it came out really, really nice. And the other one, I'm going to stay in New York City, is 111 Wall Street. It's actually the one that's behind me in the background.
Oh, cool. I like that. Right? Okay. Those watching on YouTube, it's a great picture. Great building. Wow.
It's a 26-story tower. It's the old Citibank headquarters down on Wall Street. And that project was a reskin, reclad, which was really the first one that we came across.
Yeah.
Meaning this existing building has been vacant. The owner wanted to refresh the facade, couldn't use the existing facade, wanted to get it up to code from 1/4-inch glass to insulated glass.
Yep.
Wanted to do it the right way. This is a Class A building. So we got involved very early with the design assist. There was a lot of constraints on the project, be it the building line, the drawings, which were on microfiche, which weren't even accurate, slab thicknesses. There was a lot going on there. Well, we got involved early on, worked very closely with the architect, which was Studios, and the consultant, which was WP Moore. And we were an active part in that. We like to be involved very early because we can make very good suggestions and implement what the design team wants, what the ownership wants, but will work. Yeah. And so we came up with, and this was right before COVID is when this went pretty heavily, almost before execution. And ownership wanted to, or was playing with, allowing fresh air into the building.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this was just regular fixed panel curtain wall, reskin, reclad. Came up with a design that a curtain wall being installed from the inside, not from the inside. Real unique engineering. And we gave a day 2 option if they wanted to have natural ventilation to remove the 2 outer panels, put in an operable. You wouldn't see it aesthetically, but it gives you that functionality.
Yeah.
And so we went through, we did the project. It went flawlessly. Really happy how that came out. And ownership was thrilled. Fast forward the market after COVID and what's going on for commercial space, the rage now is all about multifamily residential.
Right.
Conversion. So I used the term reskin, reclad, repurpose.
Yes.
Now they're taking these large floor plate buildings and repurposing them. And so we're involved in this right now in the design to repurpose this to a multifamily building and putting in the operables.
Nice.
And so we're
Okay.
undergoing that now. So from my perspective, why is that important or memorable? Because it's making an impact. As a company that's leading the way on sustainability, which I spoke about earlier, and carbon footprint, this is something that is right in line with that. You're not building a new building, you're just reskinning it and modifying. HVAC, of course, is the biggest, but you're doing something that is going to allow a lot more people to live there and have the least amount of impact on the environment. Touching on that sustainability,
Yeah.
what I had said was the reason that I'm so passionate about Hydro and us leading the way is you go anywhere in the world and you produce a kilo of aluminum, you extrude a kilo of aluminum. Picture a pile 18 kilos big of CO2 gas.
Okay.
Kilo, 18 kilos. For Hydro, that same kilo, 2.3 kilos of CO2. We have the ability to recycle efficiently, and a process to make it into new aluminum with no degradation.
Super.
It's infinitely recyclable. 95% of what we sell in our system is recyclable. 75% of the aluminum that we supply with our Circal is recycled content. So
Perfect.
that's making a difference for your kids, my grandkids.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is very, very cool. And so I love it. You probably have no problems getting LEED certification on those projects for sure.
Correct.
You're a good pointing thing. So aside from your stuff and it's so good, and obviously sustainability, any other new building products or recent building products that have you excited?
I think the building integrated photovoltaics. So I know that on the glass side, you had companies like View that came out, had troubles.
Right.
You're taking the glass, you're mixing it. They're a tech company, they weren't a glass company. And I think that posed some problems versus if it's a Guardian or another major supplier of glass, you're okay with that. And then by harnessing the building's facade, how much energy you can generate.
Yeah.
Again, going down that green energy, um, not just talking about it, but really making an impact where it makes sense for the ownership because the payback on it is so strong and so short. We're
Yeah.
involved in some projects where when they do the analysis, there's a lot of interest in this. And,
Yeah.
and I hope that continues because I think that's a big impact. You got all these buildings going up. Yes, not everything's a canyon like New York City.
Right.
There's many, many buildings in the world that go up where you have an opportunity to capture that daylight.
Yeah, and when you talk about repurpose, that's crucial because you're already kind of upgrading the building. And I mean, I know in a lot of ways, you being in New York, you have to do this sort of stuff because of local law, not local law 97, local law,
Correct.
so you got caught up in it. But I believe the BIPV is a big part of the future. I know we've had some starts and stops, and but there are companies like Next out in California and Luca up in New York, in upstate New York that are making a difference. Alpha Solar Tech out of Australia. So there's some good ones that I think are going to make a difference going forward.
I think so. And when you go into the warmer climates, you go into a sunny climate, whether it's Florida or Arizona, and they put up a building. What an opportunity to
Yeah,
really harness that. And you're not, there was talk at one point of doing it just in the glass. Well, then you're affecting the glass look again.
right.
You want to look through it. You don't want to look at it. It's no different than bird friendly almost.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
catch 22. But when you have the the, the spandrel panels, the stuff that doesn't matter, but it matters.
yeah.
You can harness that and really have a huge payoff to ownership and do good.
Yeah, you're speaking to the choir on that one. I love it. I love it. Steven Acker from Wicona Hydro Building Systems. Check them out at hydro.com. That's spelled hydro.com. Hit the aluminum tab and then check out the building systems. It's amazing. So let's lighten it up a little bit. A fun one for you. Very, very curious now because I've known you for a little bit, but I have no idea what your tastes are in this. All-time favorite movie or all-time favorite TV show and why? I'm very curious.
It's funny. I work hard. I play golf. That takes a lot of time.
Yep,
But
it
if I would
does.
say the TV shows I like, or I like something lighthearted. Like I love Seinfeld. It just
Oh,
makes me laugh.
Yep.
It just inside makes you feel good. And I'm gonna give you an odd one for a movie. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. Comes out once a year. Ten Commandments. I watch it like it's the first time every time. I think it's a throwback to my childhood,
Yeah.
my parents, and just that simpler, quieter time back then versus
Yeah.
now. Everything is run, run, run. Everything is your phones. You got two of them. You got
Uh,
your iPads. You're doing everything. Back then, you were disconnected. You watched, and that was it. And so it's whenever it comes on, my wife, my kids are like, "Dad, it's on tomorrow night, and I'm gonna watch it like it's the
good,
first time."
good taste. Good taste. I love it. And Ten Commandments was I remember the first time I saw it because it was so intense and it was so good, and I'll never forget that. And I love that you still check it out. And then Seinfeld, it does not age. I mean, it's
Not at all.
still. You come across it on the TV and you stop and you start to laugh because it doesn't fail. So good taste by you. I love it. A couple more questions because I know you're busy. I'm real curious. We talk about how speed has changed things. I remember when I started, I've talked about this on the podcast before. We got POs by mail. I mean, people literally would send you a purchase order, put it in the mail, and wait for the mail to deliver your purchase order. For me, that's the biggest change is speed. But what about you? What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in your, 30 plus years in this business?
Definitely the advent of technology and yes, speed, but how you're giving so many more tools to your customers to
Right.
be self-sufficient. Right now, we're implementing order entry over in Europe, where they have direct access to enter their orders into the system, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
In the days of, when I was at Oldcastle, you weren't mailing in a PO, you were faxing a PO, and
Yeah.
you had four fax machines going linked together, and it was just spitting out paper all day long, and you had a customer service team entering it and catching a lot of errors. Maybe the software will catch it or won't. But I think that helps just the technology and the amount of information available. But on the flip end, the problem is customers expect immediate.
Yeah.
They send you an email or a text. How come you didn't answer it? It's 7 o'clock at night on a Sunday.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't answer you. But it's good and bad.
Yeah.
From the service side of the business, how we grew up in the business, yeah, you did that. You answered the off hours. You gave that higher level of service, so you know that customer appreciates it for the right customer. They appreciate that, and that builds loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So technology is good. Technology is bad, but if it's channeled, it can do real well for you.
But back in the day, I love the phone thing. Back in the day, you'd give when you gave your home phone to somebody, that was like huge. That was like a trusted thing, and you knew when they called you on their home phone, it was something truly urgent. Now with the cell phone, it's all bets are off. It doesn't matter.
On the weekends or at night. And because I deal with Europe, so
Yep.
my schedule's a little messed up. We start out very early. I can be on a call 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Um, but I won't call someone that I know it's after their hours. I'll text them or I'll email them
Yeah. Yeah.
if they're available to talk. Being a little respectful. Um, we sell glass, we sell aluminum in this industry. We don't sell defibrillators.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not life or death. Yes, there's times you got to get an answer. Majority of the times, it can wait till the next morning.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But there are times where people they go crazy over it. So we've both been there. I love it. Uh,
100%.
what do you think we need to do better as an industry? Again, looking back at your experience, because you've been everything from working with Oliver Steppe back in the Baltimore days all the way to now. I mean, that sort of thing. What do you think we got to do better?
We got to get young folks coming in. Bottom line, I touch a lot of people. From the architects, you see a lot of young people in the architectural firms. From our customers, meaning the installers and the fabricators, not so much.
Yeah.
Installers, especially, there's a void there where they can't get talent, and then keeping the talent's very hard. So we have to do as the other trades do, whether that's the electrical trade, the plumbing trades. We should do much better in those VOTEC school type training to get people into our industry
Yeah.
because there is that opportunity. And it
Yeah.
starts with people voicing it. When I talk to my friends and their children, and they don't have direction, things like that. They can look up to you and say, wow, okay, this one did well in the industry. Maybe I should look into it.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And then there are probably quite a few people who have federal jobs right now who may be losing them. And if you're on the younger side, come on over to the glass industry. We got plenty of room over here.
Absolutely.
We're not cutting 10% of our workforce over here.
And right now, with that going on, I would say this to someone that's considering coming into the industry. If I look back historically, there's usually that 7 year cycle.
Yeah,
COVID messed that up. We had 10 really good years.
yeah,
7 year cycle. We're coming out of the rough time now. The end of last year was pretty tough. I'm a little further ahead because of the type of projects we do. We're longer cycle,
right.
but I think we're starting to turn the corner, and you're going to see an uptick. And hopefully it runs another 7 years. By then I'll be retired, but hopefully it runs another 7 years where we're going to have a good run going forward. So if there's someone that had a federal job looking to come in, or someone knows someone young that's considering, I think it's an opportune time to try to enter the business.
I love it. And you also just answered my question on how 2025 is looking too. So, I mean, this is, I'm excited that you have to say that because again, that is nice because you are into 26 and 27. So, because you're not working on the 7-Eleven down the street that's going to get finished here in a couple months. So that's pretty cool to hear what you're having to say.
Correct. And the architects, there's a time when I'll get calls from architects if there's anything going on, anyone we can refer them to. That's really scary. I
Yeah.
don't need an ABI index for that.
No.
There's times when the architects are very busy and you start seeing a flurry of activity. Now, whether those jobs are going to go quickly, whether ownership is looking just to feel where pricing is, it all depends. A lot's going to be driven by interest rates, but there's that activity. And I think that will continue. I think the mix or where it's going, whether it be institutional, whether it be residential, whether it be commercial, hospital, it's all going to vary.
Yeah.
And that's going to change as we go through the next few years, but there's always going to be work.
Yeah. With your visibility, I think we should, reinvent the ABI, the Acker Building Index.
There you go.
I think we're onto something there, All
That's
right, I'm
been
gonna
a good
get that
barometer for
trademarked.
me.
That could help. That could help the retirement plan. I love it. So,
But you know what? You read you read all the publications, you listen to people like yourself, and you listen more, talk less, and you get a good feel for where it is. And but historically, as I said, it's been that cycle. It's pretty amazing how that cycle has really been approximately 7 years.
yeah.
Different areas of the country a little bit different, but for the most part, that's run fairly true for my entire career.
Yeah, that's good stuff. The good stuff. I appreciate this was a blast. Steven Acker, commercial director at Wicona, Hydro, and check them out at hydro.com. That's hydro.com. Lots on that site too. So hit the aluminum tab, then building systems. Steven, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome. Look forward to seeing you in person one of these days.
Great. Thank you very much. Great talking to you. Appreciate the opportunity. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey glazers and fabricators, FHC, the frameless hardware company, is here to support your business. In addition to offering a complete selection of glazing tools and supplies to get the job done right, we design, engineer, and manufacture a comprehensive offering of frameless shower door systems, heavy glass doors, aluminum entrances and storefronts, architectural railings, transaction and display hardware. Privately owned and American-made, FHC prioritizes you, the customer. You now have a choice. Visit fhc-usa.com.
Okay. Next up, Nick St. Denis, Vice President, Research and Data, KMR, Key Media and Research. You can find them online at research.keymediaresearch.com, or if you go to usglassmag.com and hit the products and services tab and then look for industry research, you can find all of his great work. Nick, thank you so much for doing the podcast again.
Thanks for having me again, Max. I appreciate it.
It's awesome to have you back. This is year number 3 that I've had you on, and it's great to kind of get it at the beginning of the year. But before we dig into what happened in last year, what happens in this year, let's for those who do not know you, a little quick background about you, where you came from, and how you got to this point.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. So Nick St. Denis, the Vice President at Key Media and Research. I've been with KMR for 11 years. I believe this is my 11th or 12th year now. I started as an assistant editor with US Glass Magazine, and then we launched the research division several years after that in about 2016, 2017-ish. And so I've been running that division ever since. So KMR, we obviously publish US Glass Magazine. We put on regional and annual trade shows across several different industries. We primarily cover the glass fenestration industries in addition to some others on the automotive side. But my department primarily conducts customized and ad hoc market research for industry firms, and we also have readily available syndicated reports and data for the industry. And as you know, we put out quarterly and annual market reports and things like that. So kind of a mix between market research and economics.
Awesome. Awesome. And so those who don't know, we're going to talk about where you can find Nick's work and how you can get on his email list and see him in person. But he's got his finger on the pulse forecast wise. That's why I love having him come in at the beginning of the year and get caught up. So let's talk about 2024. What a crazy year overall. I mean, as the year got started, it was let's wait till the election. Let's wait till the election. And then there was always, okay, when are the rates going to get cut? And it was just a bonker sort of year. From you, though, I know you take a different view of it because you're deep into the data. How was 2024 for you? Did it come out like you thought? What was your overall take?
Yeah, so I'll get to sort of the projections and what we ended up with in a second. But just overall, as you know, the buzzword in an election year is uncertainty. And it's just become way overused at this point. This is my third presidential election cycle where I've been covering the market in this way. And we do annual research, survey research on the industry, have done that ever since then. And, whether it was 16, 20, or 24, whenever you asked, what's your take on the market, whether it's manufacturers, contractors, retailers, et cetera, it's, uncertainty to the election and something along those lines. But it seems like that's always kind of the case every time. And then as soon as everybody knows, where the ballots are cast, and as soon as we kind of make the transition to whatever happens next, the industry course corrects and we kind of just move on.
Right.
And, you don't necessarily see anything extremely devastating one way or the other because it's such a resilient industry. So, throughout the year when you hear uncertainty and these sorts of things, you just kind of say, I just sit there and say, all right, let's just wait and see what happens. I'm sure we'll be okay. In terms of how the year turned out, it was actually very, very close to our projections. And we publish the annual industry outlook report, and I come on and talk to you about this. So there's of course a record of all this. But so I went back and looked at our forecasting versus what actually came about. And so our overall architectural glass and glazing spending, which is the value of glass and glazing activity in a given year, we projected low single digits, so about 2% increase year over year, which is basically flat when you account for inflation. And we actually ended up with 0%. So that was pretty close, and actually it would have been even more spot on if not for a few different things. But so looking at the institutional side, which is your healthcare, educational, transportation, public safety, public buildings, et cetera, we had a 6.8% increase projected, and we ended up with a 7.1% increase. So
Nice.
we were very close on that one. Multifamily, we had minus 1.9%, and we ended up with minus 2.5. So those were very, very close. And then commercial, we projected flat growth, just 0% year over year, and that was actually a 6.2% decline.
Wow.
But what kind of happened there was, when looking back at the data, so if you look at the office sector, for example, data centers has been this massive growing segment, right?
Yeah.
And so historically, data centers was lumped into the office category for construction spending data from the US Census Bureau. Well, because of how fast data center growth was and how office generally was not doing so well, that share became so large that data center figures were actually kind of, manipulating the overall office segment data. So they went back and they parsed that out and divided the two and made office separate. So we went back and revised our data as well to reflect that. And so it kind of smoothed things out and made things, more realistic.
Yeah.
But in doing so, it definitely brought the commercial numbers down more because we excluded data centers, because office buildings obviously using all kinds of glass, data centers are not. So so anyway, but I use that as my excuse there. But still, being 2 percentage points difference on the overall, despite that, was pretty strong. So it was basically what we anticipated.
Yeah, you're not far off at all. And again, and you'll tell in a little bit, but I know your report comes out usually in March or end of February, beginning of March, and so people can buy that and get it right from the beginning. But it's funny you said about the commercial being down, because I know that there are friends of mine in Boston right now saying, "I told you it's bad. I told you it's down."
Yeah.
Because some areas in the U.S. are doing pretty well, but then you have others that aren't. So I'm sure there are folks that feel at least okay. They're not happy with it being down, but when they hear you say it was down, it makes them feel like, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, whether it's from a regional perspective, or you cover a local market, or if you cover a certain building sector more than others, or a certain product type more than others, your results can obviously, be drastically different year to year. So we're looking at like kind of overall averages. So yes, when we do go into these different regions and areas, sometimes it doesn't match up total with the national numbers, but we do actually have regional data as well in our more granular resources. And so it's more reflected in those. But yes, overall, yeah, and it was something that was anticipated for a while. Construction starts had been down in commercial for some time, but that doesn't always materialize into the actual value of activity until those projects start to come to fruition. So 2014 was 2024 was kind of the year where we sort of saw it hit finally.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, any surprises? I mean, because it sounds like you hit everything pretty much on the head, and now that whole data center being parsed out kind of makes things normal. Anything can jump out at you, good, bad, or ugly?
Um, Nothing that really stands out. In fact, we kind of expected it to be, things to be led more by institutional, which they have over the past year or so, with healthcare and educational being the leaders. And it was kind of steady and boring in that regard, in that it was pretty much what we expected. And there haven't been as many spikes. Coming off the pandemic, there was obviously all kinds of different spikes,
Right.
whether it was lodging, office, retail, going up and down year over year because of the impacts of the pandemic. We're sort of past that now. So in a good way, we're a little more boring these days.
Steady and boring. Not a bad play though. When you're talking about this, as long as it's steady and when things are good versus
Yeah.
steady when things are bad. I've got Nick St. Denis with me, Vice President, which I believe that's a promotion here. That's a new title for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Research and Data, KMR, Key Media and Research. You can see them online, research.keymediaresearch.com. So let's go to 2025. We're a month in. You already mentioned about the DC changeover and kind of your mental thoughts there. What about anything like overall big picture 2025 for you, for the audience?
Yeah, so big picture, I mean, in terms of like a more, we don't focus primarily on the more macroeconomic scale. I kind of leave that to the economist.
Right.
But just in terms of that and things that can affect our industry, obviously, interest rates have trickled down slightly. We were waiting for them to continue to do so. And then obviously the most recent announcement was they were kind of leaving them where they were.
Right.
Because target inflation is still, it's still above what their target is at this point. So those are kind of inflation and, inflation interest rates are kind of the two main sticking points from an overall macroeconomic standpoint. And then we have, of course, tariffs.
Yeah.
Depending on who you ask, it's funny when I do the annual survey research, and I have my section where I ask what are you most optimistic, what are you most pessimistic about?
Yeah.
It's always the same things. It's just depends on which box they put them in.
Right.
So I can't necessarily give you an answer one way or the other in terms of what the industry's thinking there. But 2025 looks to be a little bit more of the same, I think, as 2024. We were at elevated levels over the past 5 or 6 years, so we haven't really dipped down. So that's a good thing. We're kind of just maintaining that sort of flatness. We do anticipate commercial to come down a little bit more again, and then institutional is going to kind of continue to drive things. That healthcare and educational sector, which I've been preaching for the last several years, but those are just kind of been the two most stable segments that we've seen, and they're relatively large segments as well. So those have kind of buoyed the non-residential side, and then multifamily is kind of, it can be a little volatile. As of now, we see it trending more where commercial is, where it's going to be a slight downtick, but there's opportunity there for that to kind of reverse course depending on how things go, on a more macroeconomic level.
So institutional will be kind of pushing upwards. The office still kind of, and commercial overall still kind of going a little bit downwards. And then, that mixed use is pretty interesting because you're seeing more and more of that out there, but I don't think it's really gotten full speed. But the other guest on this podcast is Steven Acker from Wicona in New York, and he's seeing a lot more mixed sort of play. So I think it's in New York, it's coming to other places, and so I think long term that might be a better play for us.
I think so, yeah. And the sort of adaptive reuse and the renovation retrofit aspect of things has definitely been picking up over the past several years. You look at the office segment, for example, construction starts have been flat or declined, or significantly declined in some cases over the past few years, and vacancy rates are still pretty high in the office segment. But I mean, eventually that's going to change a little bit, and because there's been such a stalling of construction starts in office, we could see between renovation activity and then if vacancy rates do start to come down, we could kind of start to see some upper momentum there down the road eventually. So that's kind of a positive sign. And if you combine that sort of with the multifamily commercial sort of mixed use aspect of it, we might see a little bit of an evolution in how these things come out. But I do see some opportunity there for sure. And then, like I said, the retrofit and renovation area, if we're not building new buildings, but they're still there and they're still being used, even if they're not being rebuilt. Yeah. There's always a need for upgrading the glazing systems and things like that. We do have we've been pretty good about it, but there's a long way to go in terms of upgrading the existing commercial building stock.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in New York, they're doing with local law 97, they're forcing it, but they're the only city that's really doing that versus a lot of others. You may know of others, but New York seems to be the leader.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of local jurisdictions and states are trying to follow suit in that sort of thing, and the sort of energy use goals that are out there in these areas in the building segments and things like that are they have very high hopes that are, they're quite ambitious, but the fact that they're kind of going in that direction where we want to be net zero by this year, or, you hear 2030 and 2050 as being kind of years that these jurisdictions are aimed at drastically improving their energy usage through buildings. So even if we don't reach their goals, which are quite lofty, there's still going to be a demand for upgrading the products in those buildings, and you're going to see that impacted in our industry. Which
will be good for us. And the 2030 is not far away. When they announced it, it was far away. It's not far away now.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Yeah, the last few years have gone by pretty fast. So no doubt.
I have one more question on that, but I want to lighten things up, and so I'll come back to the one more forecast question. Sure. So a fun one, because I got to loosen it up. People are like, okay, we need to take a breath here. Every time you've been on, I've always talked about your favorite teams. You're a Jets guy, an Islanders guy. And you know me, I'm a huge sports guy. But the one thing I never found out from you in all of my travels and talking with you is your all-time favorite football and hockey player, because I know those are your sports. So I'm really curious on who Nick St. Denis has as his favorite all-time football player, not favorite all-time hockey player.
Well, football is very easy for me. Curtis Martin is my favorite football player of all time.
Pittsburgh boy. I love it.
Yeah. And he, because he was kind of in the era when I was growing up watching football.
Yep.
And, I mean, what a story. The guy basically had to start playing football just to get out of his neighborhood.
Yep.
And didn't start playing until he was senior in high school. Didn't even like it, but did it just so he didn't have to go home.
Yeah.
To all the violence and things like that happening in his neighborhood. And went on to have 10 straight 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Hall of Famer, finished his career 4th all time in rushing. I think he's 6 now. And a guy who, people on the periphery who don't necessarily follow football super closely wouldn't think of him off the top of their head, because he went into the end zone and handed the ball to the ref and just ran off to the sidelines. He didn't ever showboat,
Right.
Celebrate, do all sorts of things. He just kind of was, and I always really respect and appreciate about that. You want your 3 yards, you're going to get your 3 yards. You might get 7, you might get a breakout run, but you're always going to get forward progress, and you're going to get, solid production all the time. Arguably, Bill Parcells, I don't know, it seems like he's Bill Parcells' favorite player, and who's to say Bill Parcells is wrong? He's arguably one of the best, coaches in history.
Yeah,
No doubt. Yeah. I love
I,
Curtis Martin.
I love it. And so if folks want to learn more about Curtis Martin, the NFL Network did a great a football life on Curtis
That's right.
Martin. It's only an hour. It's fantastic. And I know of him because he went to Alderdice High School in Pittsburgh. I went to Peabody, which was the big rival.
Okay.
And so knew of him from there. Obviously went to the University of Pittsburgh, was a star there. And his story is great. Good taste by you. I love it. I didn't expect
And
that. Good taste.
I appreciate that. And his Hall of Fame speech too. If you get a chance to watch that, it's unbelievable.
Good. I love it. I have not. I have to watch that one. So hockey player now. I don't know how you're going to top Curtis Martin. That was a great pick.
Yeah, I can't top Curtis Martin. I was just stalling there as long as I could. Um, I have to pick players from my childhood because really I don't have favorite players now,
Right.
But I was a New York Islanders fan growing up, but I grew up playing hockey as a kid basically my entire life, and so the teams I always got on TV were the Islanders and the Devils, and I didn't know anything about divisions, and my parents weren't hardcore into it, so they didn't tell me to dislike the other team. Where my kids
Right.
know everything about all the divisions of their teams. They're not allowed
Right.
to like certain teams. But anyway, my favorite player growing up was Martin Brodeur. Marty Brodeur. I had Brodeur posters all over my bedroom.
Wow.
I wasn't a goalie, but I don't know. I love the pads. He was a great player. I watched him all the time because he's always on where I was. So I would say he's my favorite player. But if I have to pick an Islander, I'm gonna go with I don't know if you know this name, Ziggy Palffy.
Oh
Ziggy
yeah,
Palffy.
absolutely. Number
Yeah,
68 played
yeah.
and played ended up playing for the Penguins late in his career. Yeah, Ziggy
Oh, he did.
Palffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Nice
he went to
pick.
the Kings too at one point.
Yeah, nice pick. Nice pick.
So
Very
there we go.
very cool. Martin Brodeur. I know my friends at Walker Glass will like that pick too. So that was
Yeah, for sure. Hey, and
uh
let's throw Patrick Waugh in there while we're at it, since he's the
yeah.
Islanders coach and, in my opinion, the best goalie ever. So
Yeah, no doubt. I love it. I love it. Nick St. Dennis never fails me on the sports questions, so I appreciate that. Very, very cool. A couple more questions for Nick. He's Vice President, Research and Data, KMR, Key Media, and Research. Check them out online, research.keymediaresearch.com, or you can go to usglassmag.com, and at the top, products and services and hit industry research. So one last forecast question, and then I'm going to ask how people can get this information from you and see you. My comment on my blog was survive 2025 to be in the mix for 2026. Does that sound correct for you with the way things are looking at it, or are we more into heaven will be 2027 sort of thing?
I think that sounds about right. I mean, so what we have in terms of forecasting over the next 3 or 4 years is much slower, steady overall growth throughout that period of time. 2025 is going to be, as far as we know so far, going to be the flattest of those years. So yes, in that regard, for sure. Again, institutional probably going to be up, commercial probably going to be down, multifamily we'll see, but probably down a little bit. So that's in general a little bit more negative than we've seen over the past several years. 2026, hopefully, if construction starts get going here, which we anticipate they will. Last year was supposed to be the year we saw a little bit of an increase in construction starts, which would make this year stronger. That didn't necessarily happen. Hopefully that carries on, starts this year into next year. So I think that sounds about right. Depends on what region you're in, depends on what products you supply, depends on what segments you're into, but overall, yes.
Yeah, no doubt, and definitely the regional play, and maybe you're into bird friendly, which everybody seems to be pushing right now. What a product that is now.
Yeah, it seems like it's I've heard a lot about it. I mean, I covered it quite a bit when I first started in the
Right.
industry, and then I felt like I didn't hear about a whole lot of it for a little while, and now it's just been a big deal. When I have speaking engagements and talk to companies and things like that, that's one of the things they really want to talk about.
No doubt. Well, speaking of speaking engagements, let's talk about that. How can people see you speak? Where can they see you speak? How does that look like for you in the coming months?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. So our regional trade shows, we have Glass Expo West coming up next week. So I'll be doing a regional outlook there. And spoiler alert, the West region has been the weakest over the past couple of years in terms of our data and what I've also been hearing anecdotally. But so that should be an interesting one. And then we have Texpo coming up in a couple months in Texas, and I'll be covering the South Central region in that one. And then, moving forward over the years, we have different ones like Glass Expo Northeast and
Right.
Southwest and things like that. And then we also cover the automotive and architectural and automotive window films, which is, somewhat glass related.
Yeah.
So I speak at the annual Auto Glass Week and WFCT industry events as well in the fall.
Gotcha. So if you're going to Glass Expo West, make sure you don't miss Nick. And if you haven't signed up yet for Texpo, especially if you're in the state of Texas, it's well represented by the great state of Texas. You can see Nick there. So last question is, where do they find you? I've given the address on the site, research.keymediaresearch.com. Can they sign up for your quarterly newsletter? When is the Outlook coming out? And how does that all work? If you want to give everybody a rundown how they can get your info.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to research.keymediaresearch.com, you can find information that you can click through. It's pretty easy to find on how to subscribe to the Glass and Glazing Quarterly Review. You can email me at nick@keymediaresearch.com if you have any questions. In terms of the Glass Data web portal, it's myglassdata.com. If you go to myglassdata.com/about, you can find more information on it there. And then that'll give you a way to contact me as well. And I can set up a demo to show you all the data and information we have. And then in terms of the industry outlook, that's a little bit up in the air. It should be next month, unless we decide to roll it into Glass Data and we kind of repackage it. We're still working on how it's going to be packaged, but that'll be announced over the next couple of weeks.
Cool. Looking forward to that. And I actually, I forgot, I should have mentioned Glass Data. That was a big rollout last year, right?
Yeah. So we launched it about a year and a half ago. Last year was the first kind of full year, and so this is the second full year of it, and we are continuing to expand it, update and add data. It's where you can find our architectural glass and glazing spending figures and forecasting by all the by the three subsectors we mentioned. All of our most updated industry outlook survey research data is on there. We have average fabricated glass lead times data. We have all kinds of different things on there. That's super helpful to the industry. So please reach out if you'd like to check it out.
And Nick, nobody crunches the numbers like you, my friend. That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. I've got Nick St. Denis, Vice President, Research and Data, KMR, Key Media and Research, as he said earlier, research.keymediaresearch.com. Check them out, sign up for everything, take a tour, talk to Nick if you're interested in forecasting custom, numbers and so on. Nobody does it better with a focus to our industry. And Nick, thank you so much for taking the time once again this year. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Max. I appreciate it.
Awesome. See you soon. Okay. Thank you so much to Steven Acker, to Nick St. Denis. That was a lot of fun this month. Really appreciate them. Also, thank you to FHC for sponsoring this episode. Their new 22-acre campus is about to fully open out in Southgate, California, and it's going to be something special. You got everything under the sun there for FHC, including product certification, in-house testing, lots of stock, you name it. They've got it, and they'll also have a Glazer Museum coming someday soon, and that'll be very cool too. Customer will call and pickup is now open at that new location in Southgate, and the entire campus will be opening soon, so stay tuned. Thank you to FHC again for sponsoring this podcast. Last but not least, as I do every podcast, we talk a little bit of TV. If you did not watch Masters of the Air, it's about a year old. It was on Apple Plus, and it was about the Flyers, 1944-45 in World War II in Europe. Is similar to and from the makers of Band of Brothers, the HBO series from years ago. Masters of the Air on Apple Plus, 9 episodes, and fantastic. I thought it was fantastic, riveting, good stuff. I was a little late getting to it. Coming here in February is the 3rd season of Yellow Jackets. I know my friend Jody Martinez of All Star Glass likes to check that one out. She's got good taste. It is a little bit of a different show, but season 3, we'll see where they go with it. But the first 2 seasons were pretty darn interesting and kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. So Masters of the Air on Apple Plus, and Yellow Jackets is on Paramount Plus. All right, that does it for me for this month. I appreciate everybody listening, watching, supporting this podcast. And we'll be back here in a few weeks with a new one with a couple. I've got them lined up as long as they come through. A couple really, really good guests. Really excited. It's got a Windy City flair. That is your hint for the next episode. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Oh, the music is stopped.